If Roman Reigns and The Rock are going to happen at this year's WrestleMania, does it need to have the title involved? We're going to talk about that and some of the news going on in the world of WWE today on the show. Hey everybody, welcome to Assemble. I'm Matt, great to have you here. Let's talk about Roman Reigns versus The Rock, WrestleMania 39 happening in LA, and let's do this with a little bit of 2K22 sprinkled in there for you. If you guys go on to enjoy the episode, hit the like button at the end of the episode. It helps us out a lot. According to new reports, and specifically coming from WrestlingNews.co, a source familiar with the creative process told them that there are still no plans for Reigns to lose the title this year. The report noted that when Reigns won the Universal Championship in August 2020, the plan was for him to be the champion for a match against The Rock. The article continues to say that Triple H is reportedly moving forward with the initial plan for Reigns' title reign, with the idea of Reigns to walk into WrestleMania 39 as champion. The report also revealed that Vince McMahon's original plans called for Reigns to retain the title against The Rock at WrestleMania before becoming the company's top babyface. It reportedly isn't clear whether the plan is still for Reigns to retain. And we still don't know for sure if The Rock is going to happen at WrestleMania. Let me know in the comments if you think Rock and Roman will happen for sure. It's been teased. Triple H did the BT Sports interview where he was questioned about The Rock versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And paraphrasing, Triple H essentially said, it's the match they want to have. The offer is there. It's coming down to The Rock's schedule. Couple of things within this article too. So The Rock and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. It's a two-night event happening, which would happen on night 2 of WrestleMania because it is the biggest match of the last 10 years or more. It's a match that we're all wanting to see, at least for me sitting here. I know I want to see this, but does the title need to be involved in this thing? Let's assume we get to WrestleMania and either The Rock wins the Royal Rumble, which is probably the only way that they can make this happen. The Rock shows up at number 30, wins the Rumble, and is going to challenge Roman for both those title belts. With the initial plan being to have Roman retain the titles all the way through to WrestleMania. He's been on this over 1,000-day reign, 2-year reign of the Tribal Chief. It's been really good. It's been very solid. There's been a lot of development, but you know what? When we got to Clash of the Castle, when it was Roman versus Drew, I really felt, and kudos to WWE, but I really felt like that was going to be Drew's moment to win, to take the titles off of Roman. We got Solo Sikoa involved. It felt like that was Drew's main opportunity, and they didn't do it there in a UK crowd with Drew challenging for the title. So it really doesn't feel like they're going to take the belt off of Roman. The only other person I can see Roman having been dethroned by anybody is going to be Cody Rhodes. When Cody inevitably returns, which I would assume Cody would show up at the Royal Rumble, I always felt like Cody would have been the one to take down Roman Reigns based off of Cody's return, the matches with Seth, the great story they could tell. But if they are going to go Rock and Roman, WrestleMania, the title's on the line, you have to assume that Roman Reigns would retain those belts. The Rock gains nothing from walking around with WWE Championships and Universal Championships every single week. At the same token, Roman Reigns is also on a limited schedule. Based on the current reports, they're trying to get Roman Reigns to that legendary status of this generation. And I do agree that the way to do that is to have the match against The Rock. Now, you could have a situation where Rock versus Roman for the belts, but it ends up coming off as like Rock and Hogan did. Hogan went into that match as the heel in Toronto, but that's not what the crowd let them do. And that match was all the crowd. It was all the fans clamoring for that, every single move being done, and the fans booed The Rock during that match, and they made Hogan, Hollywood Hogan, the babyface. Now, I don't know what the crowd would do in LA with Rock and Roman. Would they boo Roman Reigns? He's currently the heel. Rock would totally be coming in as the babyface. Or do you think that they would flip? Or do you think that WWE would hope that they would flip, the crowd would flip on them so that they would cheer for Roman Reigns and make Roman the babyface coming out of that match? All signs, I think, point to this match happening, and frankly, it does feel like it would be for the belts. I don't know how I feel about it if you really need to have the titles on the line. I think the match itself, it sells itself, Rock and Roman. It doesn't need to have the titles. It would just be Roman trying to say who is the biggest Samoan in the whole family and who is the best of the best, and it's family versus family, and you could involve the bloodline, all this stuff. There's so much story they could mine from to make this work. I think the titles would be almost secondary, in my opinion, for the story that they would ultimately be trying to tell. But if at the end of the day you have Roman come out of WrestleMania against The Rock, holding both titles high, then it's got to be time for somebody to take those belts off of Roman Reigns. I still think that the titles should be merged and melted together, and then we end up with one WWE champion. I've thought about this too, that I don't necessarily want there to be two main champions, the Raw and SmackDown, WWE champion on one brand, Universal champion on the other, because I think that at the end of it all, it still diminishes it, and one champion ends up getting priority over the other. If Roman is still Universal champion and the other title goes to, say, Drew or Kevin Owens, I think that Roman is still viewed as that is the pinnacle top tier title that you want to fight for. I think it's better if we have one WWE champion at the very top. If Roman wins and beats The Rock, he would come out on Monday Night Raw like he has done after every major fight, like he has against Brock and everybody else in between, and say, okay, I've beaten everybody. Now I know there are other challengers, trust me. I know they could go back to Seth, they have Kevin Owens, you could do Drew again, you have Cody sitting there, you have other talent that they could really mine from to have really cool feuds with, that I'm not against at all. But I think Roman, from a story perspective, comes out on Raw and frankly just says, I have done it all, and now I have beaten Mr. Hollywood, I sent him back to Hollywood, I have beaten everybody that I need to beat. Now you have a couple of different things that could happen there. One, Roman just says, I'm out, and he comes back at SummerSlam and fights somebody else again. I worry that the crowd and fans get a little bored of that, because at what point do you dethrone him? And if you do have it against The Rock for the belts, one of the issues I think WWE runs into is that anybody that beats Roman after, I don't know how believable it's going to be. You have The Rock, and if The Rock can't beat Roman Reigns, then how can Cody or Kevin Owens or Seth Rollins or Riddle or anybody else really challenge Roman and it be believable that Roman Reigns will lose? Because they have built him up over all this time, going through everybody, going through Drew and Brock and John Cena, and on it goes. So, do you do the other way? Do you have The Rock win and take the title away from Roman Reigns? And you end WrestleMania with The Rock holding both belts high. And Rock maybe comes out and says, I am going to unify the titles and I'm going to officially retire from the ring. Because there's nothing else for The Rock to do, right? In wrestling. He's the biggest Hollywood star. He's getting older. He can't necessarily go in there and say, I'm going to do WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and other Mania. He's not doing that. They can just barely get him, based on the scheduling conflicts, get him for one WrestleMania, and I think this is their main shot. So do you have Rock win? Does Rock win the titles and then simply just lay them down in the ring and say thank you very much, and he retires and he's done, and he leaves wrestling, retires in ring as champion? And then you could then have a tournament and crown a brand new WWE champion. No matter what they do, it's creating a lot of intrigue around the title picture, which I love. I'm still invested in Roman Reigns' storyline. What's going on with the bloodline is fantastic. I love Sami Zayn involved. I love that we have Solo Sikoa is now involved. It helps build it up, as Roman cannot be on TV every single week. But once we get to Royal Rumble season, which is like January, and we're going to get to the Mania, if this match is going to happen, should the belts even be on the line? Do you have maybe somebody take it off of Roman Reigns night one of WrestleMania, and Rock and Roman is not for the belts on night two? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Rock, Roman, titles involved, yay or nay? Love to hear from you. Hit the like button, hit subscribe to support the show, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.